when I came on with the foundation, the first thing I did when I came in is I said, what's the basic sales script? What are we doing here? What's the product we're selling? Who is our customer? Where's the lead sheet? And initially nobody could tell me, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a stab at it. Here, I'm going to give you a sales script. You tell me where I'm wrong.
What's up, guys? And welcome back to the Paper Jacket Podcast. Today we are talking with Ben from the Community Foundation. You're going to hear about what they do, and we actually talk about all the intricate ways that they help nonprofits and donors basically meet each other. They're like a matchmaker. So let's get into the episode. What's up, Ben? Thanks for joining our podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, so Ben, you got to introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you do. Why are you here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Ben Collins. Some people know me as Reverend Ben Collins, and I have been kind of here in the Central Florida area. Currently, I'm a Philanthropy Advisor with the Community Foundation. That's the latest in a long list of roles that really kind of bring together business and the common good. So my kind of personal mission has always been to help people move beyond themselves and their tribes. And so I've started different work. I've been involved in different work, but that's led me to kind of the ministry, nonprofit, community service route. But I've also kind of done consulting in the background and really have an appreciation for business, did my undergrad in business, and especially marketing and messaging. I think storytelling is kind of the tool I use across all my work.
There's a lot to unpack for me right now. I'm going to start off with this. One of the most interesting things you said to me in there that caught my interest was how you help people step out of their tribes.
Yeah.
Help me understand that.
So I think, we don't have to dive into the chaos of what's going on in the world right now, but I think, two of the markers of growing up, and this is across, studying societies, but this is also true of how we grow as people, is that we have to get past ourselves, and a lot of times this is just simple ego development, right? I've got a couple of kids, and so they got to realize I'm not the only one here, I'm a part of a family. And so how do I participate in a family? The large version of a family is a tribe. And then eventually we realize, there's actually even a world outside of our tribe. And we live on ultimately a pretty small planet. And so we kind of realize that we have to do not just what's best for ourselves and what's best for our tribe, but what's best for even other tribes. And so in ministry, that was a lot of times helping people push past limiting beliefs and beliefs that sort of led them to exclude or hate other people. And in my work, in the last 5 years, that's looked more like helping people to leverage their resources to invest in the common good.
So why is that important for you to help when it comes to philanthropy and helping people step out of that?
I guess, from a personal perspective, I've always sort of been living in this tension between what I would call like business and doing good. I went to business school in my undergrad, and it was during that time that I sort of felt called to ministry. I eventually would get to the point where I would tell the United Methodist Church, who was the denomination that ordained me, I'm really like 70% entrepreneur and 30%, pastor. But I have, for whatever reason, some people call it a calling. I just have a deep sense of responsibility to help and to lead other people to help. And that's sort of made its way, through my work. And right now with the Community Foundation, really what I'm doing is talking to donors and helping them to understand that the resources they have can make a huge difference in sustaining our community, especially locally here, Volusia and Flagler County.
So help me draw the connections.
Yeah.
It seems that what you do is you help donors find organizations or organizations find donors. You seem to be the middleman for that?
Yeah, kind of both. So what I do as a philanthropy advisor is, exactly. So I basically maximize the position of donors and agencies to do the most for the common good. Local example here, I work with the Neighborhood Center of West Volusia. So they're an organization that's, fighting hunger and homelessness. And so I'm working, for example, with donors who have a passion for that kind of work. They may not know what's going on in the community. We can get them connected with the neighborhood center, but also the neighborhood center, reaches out to us and they say, "Hey, we're excited about transitioning our, sort of our food pantry into more of a self-selection grocery store. This is what it would cost, or we want to do a tiny home village." And on the foundation side, we really act as a nonprofit financial services firm. So, part of our, the United Way side of the house is raising money and making grants into the community, which is amazing. They think they raised $3 million last year, gave about 2.5 back to 112 charities. We're the largest grant maker in Volusia County. That's amazing. That's kind of the United Way side of the house. For me, on the foundation side of the house, we're like any other financial services firm in the sense that we're raising assets under management. We're managing about $20 million. The difference is that's the community's money. This is a community endowment. So every year, $400,000, $800,000 comes off of that $20 million, goes directly back into the community. So I'm trying to help raise AUM from people that care about things across our community. From, like, this year I've opened a veterans fund. We opened a food security fund. We're tackling literacy in a big way. So we basically are sort of a nonprofit finance firm that the community trusts to hold their endowments. They say, these are the problems we want to solve locally, so much that we want to build and generate and create legacy of those resources locally. So I'm kind of connecting them in those ways.
So would you... I'm not as aware of things like this.
Sure.
Right? Around most places. That doesn't mean they don't exist, right?
Sure.
Obviously, you're probably known more to the philanthropist and the and nonprofits. However, maybe I'm wrong. Are there very few of you that exist?
You know what? That's a great. I'm really glad you brought this up, because you're absolutely right. Like, when I applied for this job, I thought I was going to be doing like traditional fundraising with United Way. Going and asking people for money. In the South, people are not nearly as familiar with community foundations as they are up north, for whatever reason. But you're also right to point out, like, people around here, especially on the west side of Volusia, and a lot of people in Florida don't really know about community foundations. And so a lot of it is sort of building familiarity. But just to give you a sense of scale, so we're managing $20 million in assets. Just south of us, Brevard County's Community Foundation manages about $70 million. Jacksonville's managing $700 million. So, the scale of large community foundations is amazing. There's some big ones in Ohio. So they are not vehicles that as many people are familiar with, and that's part of my job. There's not a ton of me out there. Like, you don't go, there's not big meetings of philanthropy advisors. Like, I'm going to the annual conference in October. This is it's both not something people are as familiar with, but it's also something where we're also trying to grow our professional pedigree. So we want to be right there having conversations with financial advisors, estate planners, CPAs, and tax planners. Because we have unique things to offer as well. If you're charitably inclined and you're about to sell a business, any capital gains that they're going to come after you for, you could basically make a gift to the community foundation and give that all locally if you wanted to.
So how did you end up finding yourself here, coming from the journey of, I'm an entrepreneur who knows a lot about marketing and things like that, and a pastor?
Yeah. I would say ultimately, I excel at gaining trust and sort of helping people to, like I said, actualize, grow beyond themselves, grow beyond, their limitations. And I think I learned a lot of those skills, kind of on the ground skills in ministry, just having conversations. And a lot of those conversations tend to be pretty self-revealing, pretty intimate conversations. And what you learn, especially with people who are later in life, who have a lot of wealth, is that you're never just having conversations about money. You come in and you sit down and ask a question about money, and immediately, you're dealing with every emotional connection, to somebody's history and their wealth and what they understand as their legacy. How are they going to be introduced when they're gone? And I should have said too, I was, for a while I was a hospice chaplain. So what I've learned is that, to really have conversations about legacy and about wealth transfer, ultimately you're having conversations with people about what's going to happen when they're gone. And these tend to be, however you want to frame it, they can be pastoral conversations. And so I'm able to create that space. I'm able to hold trust with people. And I also am just deeply fascinated and curious about the business side. And so when I came on with the foundation, the first thing I did when I came in is I said, what's the basic sales script? What are we doing here? What's the product we're selling? Who is our customer? Where's the lead sheet? And initially nobody could tell me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm going to give you a sales script. You tell me where I'm wrong. So yeah, that's just kind of how I work. I come in, kind of as a consultant. And it's, either consulting to help or consultative sales, but and I got that from my dad. He's like just genuinely curious. If he has a good meal, he'll walk back into the kitchen and talk to the chef. So I genuinely am curious about people and I like helping. So this has ended up, I think to answer your question, how did I end up here from direct service and ministry, especially as a founder and especially in ministry, I kind of equate it to like. The Obama campaign was the first time we ever realized somebody could be elected to president on like $5 and $10 gifts. Running a congregation for 15 or 20 years was like trying to do the good work on $5 and $10 gifts. And then I stepped back and went, the United Methodist denomination and, all these major denominations are themselves sitting on a bunch of money. And there's just tremendous individual wealth, family foundation wealth. And I thought, what, I'm uniquely positioned in terms of understanding economics and markets and business, in terms of speaking the language of a large group of sort of faithful people, and of having this conviction that we need to connect these resources to the work that matters most, on a local level.
So as you came in kind of as a sort of a consultant in a way of like, let me help get these scripts together and help organize this in this way. And obviously that's all good because then there's a consistency to it. Make it measurable. What kind of things did you bring?
Yeah. So, I mean, the stuff that we're getting a lot of energy out of right now. So this month is actually Make a Will month. And there are, it's a great way to start a conversation with someone. Do you have a will? Why not? There's a website called Free Will. You can make a will for free. And so a lot of times just getting people started thinking about legacy in any way. And so we offer a service called estate charitable management, which is really a super simple way for an estate planner, if they've got an attorney, and our donor, to make gifts, out of their estate after they pass without having to do a bunch of additional legal work that costs a lot of money. And so, let's say somebody's charitably inclined and we've got a donor like this where, they've got a lot of money. They don't have any kids. So, they're wanting to leave gifts from their estate to like over 30 organizations. So typically an estate planner, then it's going to come out when the person dies, it's going to go into probate. And then eventually the estate planner, somebody's going to have to write 30 checks.
Yeah.
Well, what happens between now and then? 2 of those nonprofits go out of business. And so then they can't receive the checks. And it's an estate planner's nightmare. Instead, if they come to us and sign an estate charitable management plan, their estate planner writes 1 check when they pass. Comes to the foundation, then we distribute it to all the nonprofits. If they ever want to change a nonprofit or if the nonprofit goes out of business, we handle all that stuff. So it's free. It helps people to kind of think through it. And it puts us in kind of a side-by-side partnership with estate planners that they feel good about. Takes some heavy lifting off their plate. So, and then another one is
was that a product that you built?
No, I won't say that I built it, but it was one that my partner, Jason Stewart, who's there at the foundation, I would say he and I kind of built it collaboratively. And we worked with a consultant out of, I think it was in Iowa. It might've been the Des Moines Foundation. But he helped us in a lot of ways to see that the pieces that we needed to make it work, we already had, and we just hadn't kind of lined them up. And so a couple of things we had been thinking were roadblocks. He was able to see like, hey, you've already got agreements in here that can make it work. So, I think probably the strongest product that I've brought, I think has been, kind of the storytelling piece that I mentioned, which is, helping, in the largest sense, helping the foundation to realize that the donor is the hero, or the nonprofit is the hero. Right. And nobody cares if the community foundation succeeds or fails. Right. To your point, nobody even knows what it is.
Yeah.
But if we can,
no one cares about the middleman.
Right. If we can identify that the donor has a problem and we come to that donor and we say, look, we understand your problem. We're going to solve your problem, and we're only going to take 1%. All day they want to bring us money. So I think reframing it, because even, when I got, and this is probably a good place for us to kind of, dovetail and land. When I got there, we had a new marketing person. Within 3 weeks of being there, the marketing person that had been there longer was terminated. And then the marketing person that was there left after a few. So we've been like back and forth marketing. I think they've been working on a website for like 9 months. So,
goodness.
Yes. All this to say, I think, continuously, and like people are sick of me hearing about story and, the hero and the guide, but they're having these marketing conversations and like, well, we need to tell people about us. We need to tell them about us, and having to keep bringing them back to the fact that, whatever this is has to position, and it's those same constituencies, not only the donor, but the local agency, that we uniquely understand their problem, that we've got a solution or two, a couple products that can really truly help them. And that they're easy. We've got a simple plan. And so, I won't say that it's done. It's not clean. It's not easy. But I will say, I've been there coming up on a year. And I will say that like the clarity and simplicity of our messaging is cleaner than it's been. And we're like right on the heels of finally getting some of the marketing help that we need. And I know that we're talking to New York Ave about helping with some of that. So, that I think in terms of my value and what I've brought, and I've also raised money, which is great. I've gone out and done that, and I just love telling stories. Getting in front of people, and but yeah, I think helping the organization to realize that it's like in the name, we win when the community wins, and so building a website, creating marketing collateral. From the perspective of like really genuinely understanding the donor, really genuinely. And that's, it was hard at first because we're having these events and, kind of cocktail hour with donors and I'm kind of like, what do these people need? What's the problem that we're really solving?
Yeah.
And as I listened, it was, there are people who, they want to be charitable, but they're rightly distrustful because they hear the news. People are embezzling and people are getting paid all this money. And so, they started giving us language. Like we needed an organization that checked all the boxes. We needed an organization we felt like compliance was being handled. So, you kind of listen and you go, hey, we understand you've struggled to be charitable because you're worried, and reframing it. But that's, that kind of storytelling has been, I think has both helped me to better understand what we do, but I hope it's also kind of helped our team to wrap their mind around, to your point, what's the product? What are we doing? And how is what we're doing really kind of elevating and adding value to the donor, the agency, et cetera?
It all makes sense about what you do, but when you just say it generally, however, it's I can see where there may have been areas where it's like you're not clear who is our customer. Is it the donor or is it the organization?
Totally. Yeah.
And I the way you're kind of saying it to me is I feel like you are helping solve a problem for the philanthropist by all means, because again, like what you said, they're like I don't know who to give it to. I have money. I don't know who to give it to.
Right.
And I want to make sure it goes to the right person, and also I want to make sure that it's divvied up accordingly. If I pass, whichever, I have a decider for me. I have someone to manage this.
Yeah.
Cool. Now you're helping them help the community.
Peace of mind. Yep.
Meanwhile, the organization goes, we're trying to get money. We need funds. We need this. And so you are the hero to them in the story.
Yes. We bring them
in
resources.
many ways, right?
Yep.
Which is why organizations all need to go knocking on your door.
Yep.
And marketing to you because you care about their story and they got to sell themselves to you. So keep that in mind, nonprofits. Don't just fill out.
That's right.
Just
we got that. We have the grant dollars.
Yeah. But by all means, you're not telling the philanthropist. You're the hero helping. You're sharing the stories of the nonprofits that are in your
Correct.
network, and that's what makes them feel the warm and fuzzies to say, yep, I trust these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people all the time, you can't give to the community foundation, you can only give through it. And so that's, people will come to us and say, hey, and it usually breaks down to two things. It's a passion or a problem, right? Either somebody has had a life-changing experience and they feel like, I've got to do everything I can to share this and make it available to other people. And so they start a charity or whatever. Or the other side, they go, this is a problem and my life won't be okay until I help solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And so they start a charity or whatever. Then we can come along and help resource, help fundraise, help them kind of step up a lot of that professionally. And like you said, connect them with donors they might not otherwise come across. We can get into the weeds too with people who probably are charitably inclined, but they don't know what they don't know. So this is somebody who, maybe they've gone to the YMCA forever and they give a $10 a month gift to the YMCA. And they're not thinking about the fact that they've got a qualified retirement plan, they've got an insurance policy, they haven't even thought about a legacy gift. And those are the ones that'll, they'll really surprise you. Somebody who's a $5 a month giver for 30 years and then they die and all of a sudden there's $1 million check from their estate. So it's getting proactive with people about the fact that those things are possible. And a lot of times those resources are just sitting there, a policy that's been paid up for 20 years, you've never thought about it. And, there's people locally who could really do a lot of good with it.
Ben, I think what you do is really cool. And I love the heart behind it. And it's really neat for them to have you because you bring both those sides of I know the marketing language, I know the business language of this, but I'm also involved in the community as a pastor and known as a reverend, and how to help connect everyone to it. And I think that story in itself of you being with the organization says, oh, I feel like I can trust these guys.
Yeah.
So power to you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a ton more that I'm sure we could talk about, so we'll have to do it again. But thank you. These were great questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for joining our podcast today.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you.
See you in the next one.